Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Winter Wendy, who is going to be the event character for an upcoming April Fool's event. More information on the event to follow, but here are the visuals of Wendy. We haven't had a Wendy for quite a while, I think maybe even since the OG version, and everyone knows about the original Wendy. That's what this is a little bit of a reference to. We can see the pancakes in the hands of Winter Wendy on the left-hand side. There's a mirror in the background. I'm not really sure what that part's about, though. If anyone's got any idea about that, let me know. But on the right-hand side, we can see a bit more detail. She's got the kind of winter gear on, maybe a little bit late in the winter. We're hopefully getting into spring very soon. It's starting to warm up a little bit here, at least. And you can see that she's got a very, very bright jacket on. Nice winter hat. She's got a ice pick on her back, but she's got the double-handed axe in her hand, so she's, of course, going to be a strong character, but no attached weapon. By the looks of things, the visuals look pretty fine on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, like I said, pancakes in hand, great. If we look at the stats, at level 1,440, limit break 3, she has got 39,499 attack, 18,433 defense, and 29,843 HP. She is going to be a strong character, like I said. She's going to be on the control role, Gold Mythic of course, and she's going to be joining the Day 1 Allegiance. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Stunning Strike. It has got a recharge rate of 55 AP, so quite fast for an attack team. A line of enemies gets stun and 100% heal reduction for 2 turns. Make a critical attack against that line of enemies for 500% damage each. So it is worth noting that with this Adrenaline Rush, the stun and heal reduction will come in first. So if Wendy does manage to take down these characters, they will not be able to get revived as long as they aren't someone who can block that. For instance, someone who resists it, or someone like Halo 2 or Halo. Basically, Halo blocks it and they can obviously get self-revived. But it also will stun them, and this means that weapons can't proc for Wendy or other characters. It's not going to be so much of a problem for Wendy due to her specialist skill, but she can hold a weapon that has magnified strikes on it, where she'll get extra damage against these characters because they are stunned, so she could amplify her damage further with that weapon if you had that weapon built up. If we look at the second half, make a critical attack against that line of enemies for 500% damage each. It just means she's going to be able to hit 2 characters, potentially proccing her specialist skill on both of them, potentially doing a significant amount of damage to both of them as well. Pretty much as simple as that. Okay, so here we are on attack, and we are coming up against, obviously, some fast defense team characters. Generally speaking, using this rush against fast defense team characters will be better. I am using a pretty decent weapon. It is Ezekiel's Blade, I think, from the Emperor Ezekiel Blade from one of the previous battle passes. Just does a little bit extra damage, but it bypasses defense rating. There's no extra defense rating here, so it's not going to do anything extra there, but we have a lot of bonus HP due to Nor, but it should do significant damage down the bottom. It will stun them first, heal reduction will come in, and then potential takedowns will come in afterwards. We'll do significant damage, 1 taken out, 2 taken out, and now they can't be revived for the first 2 turns, and then they'll obviously be able to be revived after that. If they had the Halo buff blocks heal reduction, so even if you do apply heal reduction, that gets effectively cleansed when a character gets taken out when they've got a Halo buff. That's how that works. And it works with the specialist as well. Now, obviously, with what I just showed, that is about taking the characters down with Winter Wendy. She actually does other things if you don't want to be, building Wendy as a pure damage dealer. And I wouldn't necessarily say that's the kind of character she's going to be. She's a control role. Looking at the rest of her kit, she's got a lot more control and sort of support-based kit where you're going to set up and control characters. We'll look at the rest of her kit in a second, but you could potentially just build her like more of ransack to steal things away, to apply debuffs, and it can be quite useful there. If we look at the upgrades here on the Adrenaline Rush though, you can see at grade 2 it gets an upgrade where a line of enemies gets 100% heal reduction for 2 turns. At grade 4 it gets an upgrade where a line of enemies gets stunned for 2 turns. So this is just straight up implementations on the Adrenaline Rush. At limit break 1, the AP cost gets reduced from 66 down to 55. This isn't that important, but she could potentially benefit if she was in a team that had some sort of AP gain when it comes to weapons and so on to rush quickly on turn 2. But I wouldn't necessarily say she's a kind of character you want to command. But the rush is okay, but there are bigger damage dealers out there. It's whether you want that rush for the utility. And then Limit Break 3 comes in. It's going to get a 150% damage boost. So initially it is a critical attack against the line of enemies for 350% damage each, getting boosted up to 500% damage each. And the damage isn't too bad. Like I said, there are multiple ways you can actually multiply that up. Obviously, buffs on Wendy from other characters, getting the stun bonus damage with magnified strikes in the 4th slot on her weapon, having just a purely heavy built attack character in Winter Wendy rather than what I would assume would be probably the better way to build it would be the support way. That damage isn't going to be terrible, but like I said, you could primarily see her as more support, and when you see the rest of her kit, you can obviously decide. But when it comes to Adrenaline Rush, I don't think it's going to be like a game winner, but it can potentially control a line of enemies, and then when your teammates take them down, if you can't decap them, at least they have 100% heal reduction and they can't be picked back up. It's pretty much as simple as that. Her being a strong character just means you have a lot of choices where to go when it comes to things like the weapon. Now, next up, we're going to check out Winter Wendy's signature move, and it is called Extra Syrup. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 0 turns, number of uses unlimited, make 2 critical attacks against a line of enemies for 450% damage, 900% total each. If the primary target is of the tank role, disarm them for 3 turns. Now, this is good for obviously a bunch of reasons. The damage output is going to be big. This is bigger than her Adrenaline Rush damage because she'll be hitting people twice for 450 rather than once for 500. So she's going to be doing 900% damage each. And then obviously if she takes someone out with one of those 450s, she's going to go to somewhere else. Now, the risk you have of a character just randomly attacking somewhere else is their weapons can proc. That can't happen against Winter Wendy because her specialist skill bypasses weapons. She may not necessarily disarm them, but she can never proc 3rd slots, so she can never be controlled that way. And the last part, if the primary target is of the tank role, disarm them for 3 turns. This just means that if you have a line of enemies, it's generally beneficial to target the guy who's the tank, just in case you don't to actually take them out. They'll be disarmed for someone coming in afterwards just to easily line it up. And tanks are a little bit harder, generally speaking, to hit disarms on, but because she is the control right, actually it doesn't make any difference. So it isn't that big a deal. But she still does have to hit the crit, which is generally on a well-built team. If you want to get crit on a character, you probably can get up to like 75 to 80% crit chance. You can't get 100%. But this is going to be 2 attempts with that because it's going to swing twice with the axe. The big thing is it's a 0 turn cooldown. This means that every time you're not adrenaline rushing, you can just do this, which is actually pretty good. Like, the amount of times you can do hits is really good. And like I said, if she's got a ransack weapon, that could potentially be 4 effects stolen from enemies off the turn 1, 6 if you have the improved ransack, and that's really nice, honestly. That's really nice indeed. So let's check this out. So here we are attacking the same sort of team again, but this time around we have got Circuit on the defense team, so there is going to be some Halo. I'm going to use the signature move against the bottom line once again, but in Wendy's hands this time around we have a ransack weapon, so we'll have a bit more utility. We'll steal away that Halo potentially and other buffs that these characters have. Because we attack them both twice, we should be stealing 4 buffs, and obviously depending on the team you're coming up against, you can kind of calculate how many buffs each character will generally have for which, you know, ransack weapon you potentially would have to hold. This is just a basic ransack weapon. We'll do the signature move against the bottom line, and as you can see, loads of buffs were getting stolen, and right now Wendy has got all the buffs. On the right hand side you can see there's no Halo left on these characters, so they're not getting picked back up, which is very nice indeed. She's not necessarily going to actually take these characters down, but if she doesn't, they should be disarmed in this situation because it's 4 crit attacks, 2 against each enemy. And obviously if I selected a tank on the primary one, it's a guaranteed disarm, or at least a guaranteed disarm proc. And then any follow-up damage by my more dangerous pure damage dealers should be able to make short work of whatever is left on those characters. So taking a look at the upgrades on Winter Wendy's signature move, you can see at grade 3 it gets an upgrade where if the primary target is of the tank role, disarm them for 3 turns. At grade 5 it gets -1 to starting cooldown, so it goes from a 2 turn starting cooldown to a 1 turn starting cooldown. This is actually quite important and comes in very nice and early in on the upgrades. Limit Break 2, it gets +1 critical attack each. So initially it is a 450% damage hit to 2 enemies, or to a line of enemies. And then at Limit Break 2, it gets boosted up to hitting them both twice, which is quite important, especially if you want to utilize Ransack just to steal as many buffs as possible, have more chances to hit the crits, to disarm, and honestly, have more chances to just take out the characters. If she can take out characters, even with a more like support-based build, why not? Why not? Let your other damage dealers deal with other characters afterwards. That seems absolutely fine for me. So I think this signature move is very nice indeed. Lots of damage potential, lots of hits potential, and like I said, because of Ransack and how that works, very nice as well. There is some other stuff that she's going to be doing, but again, we took down the enemies in that clip. We have to not take down the enemies, so I'll probably have to do a clip when I show the passives with no weapon in her hand. So she's doing basically no damage, just to show you what the effects are actually occurring, because she does extra stuff against the really tanky defense teams, which she's not going to be able to take down. The characters being alive are going to be very, very, very controlled. So that's actually going to be quite nice. But as it stands, the signature move is going to have quite a nice usability, quite quick. Every turn you can do this when you're not adrenaline rushing. This is where the 55 AP actually doesn't make much difference. You don't need AP on attack on her weapon, so you could try and build a very special weapon for her. For instance, you could have like even just a 30 crit rate on it instead of AP on attack, would just give her a better chance to hit crits, and you don't have to increase that. It's just a flat increase of 30 crit. Or you could give her maybe HP bonus, just basically to increase her survivability. It's up to you. She just doesn't need AP on attack if she's doing her signature move every single time. So I like the signature move, like I say. I think it's great for Winter Wendy's kit. Now, taking a look at Winter Wendy's mythic abilities, these are her passive skills. She, of course, does have precision because she is of the control role, where enemy resistance is a 40% lower against this fighter. This is going to be good for her specialist skill, but it will be good for other parts of her kit too. The next part is called Pin Down. When attacking a tank role target, 100% chance to daze a target for 2 turns. This is going to work obviously with her precision, where she's got a better chance to hit those dazes, and that's going to be on the tank role. So again, it seems obviously better to try and target the tanks, stop them from doing their signature moves off of turn 1, because you get 2 hits at that with her own signature move, and then she gets a proc of that potential on her Adrenaline Rush 2. Now the next one is called Critical Failure. When performing a critical attack, 100% chance to impair the target for 2 turns. This is what I was saying. If she's not taking out targets, it isn't that big a deal. Those targets aren't doing much, especially if they're a tank. A tank's sitting there right now, disarmed, dazed, and impaired. Good luck. Have fun with your basic attacks. The next one is called Team Advantage, and this one's the one that is kind of nice. It kind of makes it a bit more special. You're going to have to think about some extras here. Winter Wendy gets 100% daze resistance, but also all teammates deal 50% more damage when attacking targets with disarm. Now, there isn't a huge amount of disarm coming out of Winter Wendy's kit. She's only disarming the characters that she actually hits. But she could potentially be in a team with another disarm. Someone like Wanderer, you could go all in on 2 disarm characters in the same team. But then there's going to be, should be disarm, pretty much everywhere. And those characters are going to take 50% extra damage, which is going to be very nice for particular damage dealers. If you think about trying to set up certain characters, you could try and disarm, let's say, the leader in an enemy team, and then hit them with someone like Danny. And Danny would now do 50% extra damage against the central character, and then that splash damage would be boosted as well. Everything would be boosted off of that. And then obviously his damage output would be massively magnified. Not necessarily that he needs it to be, but it's just a way of amplifying things as much as possible, because these defense teams scale massively when it comes to reducing incoming damage. Percentage damage is the thing that generally falls off constantly. This is why old damage dealers just aren't used anymore, because they scale off the quickest. So if you can actually boost the damage, some of these characters might have comebacks, or you're just boosting the damage of characters that are right now top tier. So this time around, we will use the signature move with no weapon. I don't think I'll be able to take these characters down if we're getting no percentage damage increase. We'll do the signature move against the bottom line. We might have actually taken down one. Maybe. We did. But we didn't take down the second one. Now the second one now has daze and impair, I think. There's daze and there's impair and disarm. So this character can't do much. The weapon's not going to proc if I follow up with any other damage to finish them off. I could decap them with someone else. Or, you know, I just lead them. They're not going to be able to do the signature move. They're not going to be able to do Adrenaline Rush. They're pretty much useless. They're just going to do a basic attack. And I could obviously deal with them a bit later. They obviously can heal up though. So maybe I want to take them out while they are lower HP. Now if I did have a ransack weapon in my hands, the character that we did down would no longer have Halo. But like I said, when you come up against the very, very tough defense teams, I don't think Winter Wendy's just got that punch that she's going to have in these like tests against just a basic defense team, just to show you how the effects work. But you can see that her control is still good, even though she's most likely not going to take down those enemies. Going straight into the upgrades on the passive skills, you can see at grade 1, she gets the first half of pin down. When attacking a tank roll target, 50% chance to daze the target for 2 turns. At grade 2, she's going to get the first half precision. Enemy resistances are 20% lower against this fighter. At grade 3, she gets the second half of pin down. When attacking a tank roll target, 50% chance to daze the target for 2 turns. Moving on to grades 4 and 5, you can see at grade 4, she gets the first half of critical failure. When performing a critical attack, 50% chance to impair the target for 2 turns. And then at grade 5, she gets the first half of team advantage, 50% daze resistance for Wendy, and then all teammates get 50% more damage when attacking targets with disarm. It's worth noting the second half of this team advantage passive, the 50% extra damage that she does, this is the highest it can be. So even at grade 5, Winter Wendy is going to give that to the highest, you know, amount. It's just about improving the daze resistance when we get into the limit breaks. And just to confirm that, we'll move into limit breaks. Limit break 1, precision 2 comes in, making it 40% lower resistances against this fighter. This is going to be great for her passives, which are now doing daze and impair. Potentially you could have a stun on attack weapon. Obviously she's got the disarm in her kit as well. So obviously there's a lot of control potential. It works with her precision really well. So precision is top tier for her. The next one is going to be limit break 2. Critical failure 2 come in. And then when performing a critical attack, now 100% chance to impair the target for 2 turns. And then moving on to limit break 3, just confirmation. It's an extra 50% daze resistance. And then still all teammates deal 50% more damage when attacking targets with disarm. I actually like Winter Wendy's kit quite a lot, obviously. More of a control-based character. I do think we lack control-based characters. And we just did get a really, really good one in Davey. But he's obviously a premier character, a character you had to use tokens on. So free-to-play have limited accessibility to that. But free-to-play now get Winter Wendy, who's obviously nowhere near as powerful as Davey. But she's still going to be quite usable. I wouldn't necessarily say they could be used in the same team, but she's actually pretty good and could be used in conjunction with some other characters. If, like I said, if you picked up, you know, previous characters who have disarm, someone like Wanderer or Julie, the double disarm, having disarm against the entire team makes your damage output amplification much higher because of Winter Wendy. It could be something that you could play around with. I think she's going to be quite usable, definitely on an attack team as a support character. Her weapon is really going to define how good this character is going to be on your teams. But her passives work well and they make 100% sense for her kit. Now, before we move on to that weapon, we will just check out the specialist skill, and it is disarming. This fighter will never trigger a special or epic weapon effect that activates when an enemy fighter is defending. This means that the 3rd or 4th slots, a disarm can never proc, which means someone like Roland, who has the massive reflect on his 4th slot because of the fact that he slows himself, she'll never get reflected. So she could potentially try and like deal with Roland potentially, if you really want it to go that way. But any weapon, stun on defense, absolute defense, all that. But then she can disarm them for her teammates, because it says when this fighter performs a critical attack on a human target, that target will be disarmed for 2 turns. This means the 3rd slot, not the 4th slot, but the 3rd slot will not be able to proc, and that's stun on defense, absolute defense, stuff like that. And then the last one, it says disarmed fighters lose any slot 3 special effects granted by their weapons. And as it was just confirmation that anyone who is disarmed, that 3rd slot does not work. It's pretty much as simple as that. When you click on a weapon, you'll see that the 4th slot I think it has a disarmed icon with it crossed out, just saying it can't be disarmed. But she can never proc them when she attacks them. Like I say, I think that's actually pretty good. And honestly, disarm on attack teams is really important these days, just because there's so many weapons going around that have 60% chance to proc, which means you have more chance of your attack not happening than happening, which is ridiculous. But now we have more disarm potential. You've got more chance of actually being able to play the game how you aim to. Now, when it comes to the weapon, of course, there is no attached weapon. It is just going to be the default axe. It's up to you where you want to go here. I would say potentially like the dream weapon could be something along the lines of attack in the first slot, flat a crit, and then maybe stun on attack and then ransack, because she doesn't need AP, so she can just get extra crit that way. And then she's got more control potential with the stun on attack, which she can do with those multi-hits on her signature move. And then the ransack will also be stealing away effects. That's just like the most overpowered weapon for Winter Wendy as a support character. Not many people are going to have that weapon though. You have to build that pretty much from scratch. There's no real good starting block that I can really think of. Scopely only give out 5-star weapons, which are generally bad starting blocks or weapons. To build a good weapon, you need them as a 4-star weapon. So unless they bring out like 4-star weapons that actually have good stats on them for good starting blocks, you kind of got to rely on what Scopely bring out as 5-star weapons. And those are generally not that accessible. We don't get too many 5-star weapons, and they're kind of like very niche a lot of the time rather than being very like widespread usage, unfortunately. But good luck trying to build Winter Wendy's weapon. A basic ransack with nothing else that's very spectacular on the weapon will be fine though as well. So this was just a first look at Winter Wendy, and like I said, she is going to be a character coming out in an upcoming event. More information on that event to follow. And she does look like a pretty decent character. She looks like one of the better characters, especially as an attack character that we've had in recent times. And she's also not fast, which is a big thumbs up from me. But I do like disarm. I do like how her kit works. Lots of control. And I do think, you know, everybody getting a chance at Davy is great. But free-to-play getting given someone like Winter Wendy is quite important. Because at least if you can slow down and nullify the defense teams, it may take you a while to beat them, but at least you can eventually beat them rather than getting hard nuked. Because a lot of these defense teams just hard nuke. And she can daze, she can impair, she can obviously disarm. And if you give her a stun on attack weapon, she can potentially also stun. So there's a lot of control potential there. Do tell me your thoughts though on Winter Wendy as a character. What do you like about her kit? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.